Episode 2, Part 2. Hi there, welcome to Ceevaluations. I'm so glad you took time out of your day to be here. Today we're going to be continuing our review on Abi Dare's best-selling novel, The Girl with the Louding Voice, which follows our main character, Aduni, a 14-year-old girl forced into marriage in her village in Ikati, until various occurrences subsequently forced her to flee from her old life. Now, the last time we saw Aduni, she was running from Kere village and the death of her co-wife, Khadija. As I said in the last video, this book contains themes such as child labor and exploitation, gender-based violence, domestic violence, child marriage, sexual assault, and physical and emotional abuse. So please be aware. I also do want to put a disclaimer that this is not a spoiler-free review. We will be discussing key plot points and character arcs in every chapter. So if you're yet to read the book and you'd like to go in blind, you can save this video for later and come back to it. If you haven't seen the first part of this lovely book, please start there. Trust me, you'll understand the story so much more. Alright, so without further ado, let us continue The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. In chapter 17, Aduni runs. She runs as though the ground behind her is on fire, her chest tight and her breath coming in broken bursts as she makes her way back towards her father's house. Her legs feel weak from everything that has happened, the long journey, Khadija's death, the shock of Bamidele disappearing and never coming back. But still, she runs because she does not know what else to do. When she finally reaches the compound, she throws herself at her father's feet and begins to explain everything. Khadija's death, the trip to Kere village, the strange ritual with the soap and the walk to the river, and the moment that Khadija's body went still in her hands. At first, her father refuses to believe her. He thinks she's lying, that she simply ran away from Morufu's house because she couldn't endure life there. But she keeps speaking, her voice shaking and her eyes filling with tears. The truth slowly begins to settle over him like a heavy cloth. And instead of hiding her, Papa says that they must go to the village chief. The words send fear rushing through Aduni's body. She knows that if they go to the chief, people will say that she abandoned Khadija or even killed her herself. And deep down, she knows something else too, that if the chief demands punishment, her father will not stand between her and it. So while Papa is still outside speaking with the neighbors, Aduni quietly begins to pack her things. She doesn't have much: one Ankara dress, a few undergarments, a chewing stick, and her mother's old Yoruba Bible. She presses the Bible to her chest for a moment before placing it carefully into her bag. Then she takes out the money she once hid before her wedding and slips a small amount under Caius's pillow. She wonders if this will be the last time she ever sees this house. When she steps outside, Born Boy notices her leaving and casually asks where she is going. She lies quickly, saying Morufu sent her with money for Papa. Born Boy smiles proudly and begins talking about how much food Morufu has been bringing to the house, calling him a good husband. Aduni forces a smile, even as something inside of her breaks, and then she turns around, says her goodbyes to him, knowing that this will probably be the last goodbye, and begins to run again. In chapter 18, Aduni runs through the village roads, past rocks and weeds and broken tires scattered along the ground. At one point, she stumbles and scrapes her ankle against a sharp stone, but she doesn't stop. She keeps moving forward because every second spent here in this village feels dangerous. Along the road, she runs into two girls. One of them is Ruka. They ask her where she's going so quickly, and Aduni lies again, saying she's headed to the river because the well in her compound has dried up. Ruka laughs and tells her that they will come dance for her when she has her new baby. Aduni does not answer. She does not know how to tell them that there isn't going to be a new baby, and so she keeps running. Soon, rain begins to fall, soaking her hair and her clothes. The water runs down her face, mixing with tears that she didn't even realize that she was crying. She thinks about Morufu discovering Khadija's death, about her father being questioned, and about the terrible stories that the village must definitely be telling about her at this point. But there is one thing that she knows for certain, that if she goes back now, she may never escape again. Eventually, she reaches the market square just as the rain slows down. The sky above her is dark and heavy. Near the border of the village, she passes the statue that reads "Bye-bye to Ikati," the village of happiness. She pauses only briefly before moving on. A woman selling akara catches her attention, and as she tries to buy some food, but obviously she cannot since she has no money, a voice suddenly calls her name. It's Mr. Bala, Kike's new husband, still dressed in the blue kaftan that he wore for his wedding. He kindly buys her akara and asks her why she's walking alone so late at night. Once again, Aduni lies, saying that Morufu sent her to pick up some spare car parts. He nods and tells her to greet her husband. and Aduni thanks him softly before continuing along her way. In chapter 19, exhaustion finally catches up to her. When she reaches Agan village, her legs feel like they might collapse beneath her. She makes her way to the home of the woman she calls Iya, the same woman that her mother once worked for and helped, and knocks weakly on the door. Iya opens the door slowly, dragging herself across the floor. She's thinner now. Her body is frail. Her voice is soft and tired. The room behind her is almost empty, and many of the things that Aduni remembers from childhood are gone. Inside that quiet room, Aduni tells her everything. She speaks about Khadija and the journey to Kere village, the strange man called Bamidele, the walk to the river, and the moment that Khadija died in her arms. She begs Iya to let her stay just for a little while until someone comes forward with the truth, until Bamidele comes forward with the truth. But Iya understands something that Aduni is still struggling to accept. Bamidele will never come back. He has a wife, he has a new life and a child on the way, and he's never going to return and confess what happened. Still, Iya chooses to help her for her mother's sake. She tells Aduni about her half-brother Kola, a man who sometimes helps girls find work in the city. That night, Aduni sleeps beside Iya on a thin mattress, but sleep does not come easily. Her mind drifts between memories of Mama, of Caius, and of Khadija lying still by the river. And then suddenly, before sunrise, a loud voice echoes outside of the house. A voice that's screaming, her father's voice. Where is my daughter? In chapter 20, fear grips Aduni's entire body. She freezes where she sits as she hears Papa's voice grow louder outside. Iya quickly points towards a hidden door leading into a shared corridor and urges Aduni to hide. Aduni crawls inside just as Papa busts into the room. Papa and Caius search the whole house. They open cupboards and they check corners, and eventually they find the black nylon bag that Aduni packed some of her things in. And then before you know it, Caius finds the hidden door and he walks down the corridor and stops right in front of her. And for a moment, they simply just stare at each other. Aduni's heart is pounding and she silently begs him not to speak. From the other room, Papa calls out, asking if he sees her there. Caius pauses and then he answers quietly, "No, sir." He turns and walks back, but before leaving, he presses his hand briefly against his chest and gives her a small nod, a silent promise that he will protect her secrets. It's a small act, but in that moment, it feels like the greatest kindness in the world. And tears slip from Aduni's eyes as she realizes this is probably the last time that she will see her brother. In chapters 21, after the danger has passed, Iya prepares a small pot of yam porridge while Aduni tries to calm the trembling in her hands. And soon, Iya's half-brother, Kola, arrives. Iya explains Aduni's situation to him and asks if he can help her find work somewhere safe. Kola studies Aduni carefully before saying there might be an opportunity. There's a madam in Lagos looking for a new house girl. Lagos, the word sends a strange mix of fear and excitement through Aduni. Lagos, the city she once dreamed about while talking with Enitan. Within minutes, Kola is making phone calls and telling her to pack up and meet him outside at the car. And before she fully understands what's happening, she finds herself sitting inside a car as they drive away from Agan village. And as the road stretches ahead of them, Aduni realizes something quietly and painfully, that she's leaving her old life behind, probably forever. In chapter 22, the journey to Lagos begins. Aduni asks many questions along the road about the family she'll work for, whether they'll send her to school or whether she'll be paid properly. At first, Kola tells her to stop talking, but when she begins singing a song that her mother once loved, his mood softens and he tells her she has a beautiful voice. And then he explains the rules of her new job. You eat what they give you, you sleep where they show you, you wear what they tell you, and you never ever grow wings. He promises her that her salary, 10,000 naira a month, will be kept safe with him and delivered every 3 months. And Aduni believes him. She still thinks that her life may finally be changing for the better. In chapter 23, she arrives at the house of Big Madam. Big Madam is indeed She is big, loud, and covered in glittering lace and gold jewelry. Kola kneels before her respectfully and instructs Aduni to greet properly. Aduni answers questions she barely understands, making Kola have to speak up for her and tell Madame that, yes, she will do the work properly and diligently. They tell her to go inside the house, and inside the house she meets Kofi, the Ghanaian cook, who is dramatic and talkative, but surprisingly very kind. He shows her to her room, he shows her the kitchen and the compound, but even as she walks through the house, Aduni cannot stop thinking about Khadija and the quiet riverbank where she left her body behind. In chapter 24, Big Madam enters the room, but when she returns, Kola is gone. In fact, this moment becomes the last time Aduni ever sees Kola in the book again. In chapter 25, Coffee gives her a full tour of the house. There are rooms for everything. There's a room for clothes, room for shoes, rooms for the cars. But the place that captures Aduni's heart the most is the dusty library filled with books, more books that she's ever seen in her life. Still, Coffee warns her about Big Daddy, Madame's husband, a man known for drinking and chasing young girls. And soon, Aduni learns that her daily routine begins at 5 in the morning. She has to sweep all the floors, wash all the windows, clean the bathrooms, and scrub the compound. And yet she still believes that Kola will come back with her salary. But the chapter ends with Coffee quietly telling her something very troubling. That, in fact, that was the last time that they saw Kola in the compound before bringing Aduni this day. In chapter 26, Aduni slowly begins to understand what life inside Big Madame's house is truly like. Her days start before sunrise and they stretch long into the evening. She wakes up before everyone else to sweep the compound, to scrub the floors, clean the bathrooms, wash the windows, polish all the surfaces until her hands are bleeding and aching. By the time the rest of the household wakes up, she's already been working for hours. And yet, after all that work, she's only given one small meal a day. The hunger settles into her body like a quiet, constant companion. Sometimes her stomach twists painfully while she works, but she forces herself to keep going because she knows Big Madame is always watching. One afternoon, Kofi took pity on her. He quietly gave her a little extra food from the kitchen, hoping that no one would notice, but Big Mama noticed. The punishment comes quickly and cruelly. She pours the rice all over Aduni's head, letting the grains fall into her hair and down her clothes, as if she's nothing more than a dirty plate that needs washing. And then she smashes the boiled egg against Aduni's face, the yolk dripping slowly down her cheeks while she stands there in silence. The humiliation is almost worse than the beating that follows. In chapter 27, the beatings begin to happen more often, and Aduni slowly learns that in Big Madame's house, that there does not always have to be a reason for the beating. Sometimes she's punished for singing while she works, even though singing is the only thing that makes the long hours feel lighter. Sometimes she's punished for moving too slowly, even when her arms are already sore from scrubbing the floors. Sometimes she's punished simply for answering a question too late. But in the midst of all this, Aduni discovers one place in the house where she can breathe: the library. It's a quiet room filled with shelves of dusty books, more books that she's ever seen in her life. And whenever she finds a small moment alone, she slips inside the room and begins to read. Slowly, carefully, she flips through the pages and searches the Lincoln Dictionary for words that she does not understand. Each new word feels like a small victory on her part. Each new sentence she manages to understand reminds her of the dream that she still carries quietly in her heart: to go to school, to learn, and to find her lauding voice. But even that small happiness does not last long, because one day Big Madame catches her in the library. And before Aduni can even start to explain, the beating begins. One slap, then two, then three. The blows land again and again until she stumbles and falls to the floor, the room spinning around her. From chapter 28, we see that there are little factoids about Nigeria at the beginning of the chapter. It's 1 or 2 lines long, pertaining to what the chapter's main theme is about. And as the author has stated, the facts about Nigeria gathered are all available online at your disposition. Chapter 28's fact is that Nigerians are known for their love of parties and events. In 2012 alone, Nigerians spent over $59 million on champagne. We start the chapter with Aduni informing us that Big Madame is having a big party on Sunday. She's running around the whole compound mad with preparations. She's shouting at Aduni to wash and scrub and polish every inch of the house. And she even buys a fat brown cow for Kofi to make barbecue and beef stew. Aduni doesn't understand what all the fuss is for. Is the party supposed to be a birthday celebration or something? Kofi tells her no, that it's the WRWA meeting, Wellington Road Wives Association, and Big Madame is the president of the group. It's basically a bunch of middle-aged women living on their streets, Wellington Road, half of them young wives of former military personnel, the other half wealthy business owners like Big Madame, some who can't even afford the lifestyle, forming an association together once a quarter as an excuse to dress fancy and gossip and get drunk, whilst pretending that they're trying to raise funds to help the poor. So straight bullcrap. Kofi continues ranting about how all rich Nigerians know how to do is just throw parties and spray dollars like paper. That don't they know that the exchange rate is now 170 naira to $1? That statement made me chuckle, but not as much as what he says after, which is, Charlie, unless Buhari becomes president next year, nothing can move this country forward. Oh, Kofi, you sweet Ghanaian man, if only you knew. Anyways, he goes on to state the reason why Big Madam is so adamant about this meeting going well. She's obviously trying to one up the last host, Caroline Bankole, a filthy rich housewife of an oil and gas businessman, and surprisingly, one of Big Madam's closest friends. Aduni frankly doesn't really care about all this, and Kofi knows, asking her if she knows what she's going to do about her salary, seeing as she's been here for 3 months now without pay. Aduni isn't sure, and she's too scared to bring it up with Big Madam, fearing that she'll get a beating for even daring to ask. Kofi encourages her to hold strong and see what happens in a few months before suspiciously looking over his shoulder and pulling out a folded piece of newspaper from his trouser pockets. He gives it to Aduni to read, and she does so out loud slowly. Call for applications. Ocean Oil Secondary School Scholarship Scheme for female domestic workers. It's a scholarship opportunity for vulnerable Nigerian girls between the ages of 12 and 15 to commence or complete their education. It covers tuition, boarding fees, and stipends for the duration of the scholarship. All Aduni needs to do is write a 1,000-word essay, get a signed consent form from a guarantor who is a Nigerian citizen, and submit the application by the 19th of December 2014, which is about a month away. This is it, Aduni thinks. This is the way out of the torture that she was thrown into the day she stepped foot into Big Madam's compound. She can't even believe it, asking Kofi how he managed to get his hands on this. That it's such short notice, that what if she improves her English first and then applies maybe next year? But Kofi isn't hearing any of her excuses, telling her that this might be her only chance at freedom. His voice is tight and angry as he tells her that he doesn't want her to end up like Rebecca, a missing person with a missing future. He has a daughter her age in Ghana, and he can't bear the thought of Big Daddy trying to harm her in any way. He tells her that she needs to think about her future, and there is no future for her in this compound nor in Ikati village. This is all she has. He won't force her to apply, and although he's not a Nigerian citizen, he has friends that could help. He tells her, Chale, just try it, and Aduni asks him why he keeps calling her Chale because that's not her name. He explains it's a way of saying friend in his language, and Aduni thinks, wow, she has a friend willing to get her out of what once seemed like a hopeless situation. Something small but unsettling appears outside of Aduni's window in the night. It's a string of waist beads, and at first she doesn't understand why the sight of them makes her uneasy, but then she remembers the girl who worked in the house before her, Rebecca. Rebecca must have worn these waist beads, and suddenly a troubling thought begins to grow in Aduni's mind. Maybe Rebecca did not simply run away the way everyone says she did. Maybe something else happened to her. And maybe the truth of what happened in this house is more frightening than anyone is willing to admit. Chapter 29's facts starts with over 250 ethnic groups, Nigeria has a wide variety of foods. The most popular include jollof rice, skewered pieces of grilled and peppery meat called suya, and akara, a delicacy of bean fritters. Big Madam hosts her gathering for the Wellington Roads Wives Association, and the house is filled with wealthy women dressed in expensive clothes, and their laughter echoes through the rooms as Aduni and Kofi rush back and forth serving trays of food and drinks. During the gathering, though, as Aduni is serving the skewers of meat, she meets a woman who feels very different from the others, and just standing in the corner by herself. She is dressed simply compared to the other women, wearing braces on her teeth and a small nose ring. When Aduni serves her food, the woman looks at her and says thank you in a way that feels genuine. And that small kindness catches Aduni off guard. The moment lingers in her mind, and as she tries to walk away with the tray still in her hands, the emotion building inside of her suddenly overwhelms her, and the tray of meat slips from her fingers, crashing to the floor with a loud thud. The sound cuts through the room like a sharp crack, and Big Madam's anger explodes instantly. The woman asks if she's alright, and tears already begin to well up in Aduni's eyes as she bends down, frantically trying to pack up the meat back on the tray while simultaneously trying to wipe her tears. The last thing Aduni feels is a gust of cold air as something heavy lands on the back of her head hard. The last thing she hears is the voice of the woman shouting, "Florence, what the hell?" And the last thing she sees is Big Madam holding one leg of her red shoe, aiming right at the middle of her head before everything goes black. In chapter 30, when Aduni slowly opens her eyes again, the first face she sees is the kind woman from the party. Her name is Miss Tia. Miss Tia is kneeling beside her, gently cleaning the wound on her head. The noise of the party has faded faded into the background, and for a moment, the two of them simply sit together talking quietly. They talk about small things at first, about work and about life, and for the first time in a long while, Aduni feels as if someone is truly listening to her. But when Aduni asks Miss Tia why she doesn't want children when the conversation stays there, she becomes tense. Miss Tia's expression changes and the warmth between them fades. After that, she withdraws from the conversation and leaves Aduni worried that she may have said the wrong thing. In chapter 31, a few days later, Big Madam announces that she will be traveling abroad, and before leaving, she gives Aduni a warning that she must never ever be alone with Big Daddy. The warning lingers heavily in Aduni's mind because she has already noticed the way Big Daddy sometimes looks at her, the way his eyes linger, and the way his voice changes when he speaks to her. And now she understands that even Big Madam knows that something is wrong. In chapter 32, something unexpected happens. Miss Tia returns to the house, and this time she apologizes actually for how she reacted the last time they spoke to each other. The tension between them softens, and Aduni gathers the courage to show her something that she's been holding on to. Kofi's newspaper clipping about the scholarship program for young domestic workers. And to apply, the girls must write an essay about their lives and provide a guarantor. Aduni explains this opportunity quietly to Miss Tia, her voice filled with both hope and fear. Miss Tia listens carefully, and although she's scared of getting on Big Madam's bad side, after a long pause, she agrees to help Aduni. For the next 2 weeks, while Big Madam is still away, she will come and teach Aduni English so she can write the essay properly. And the moment feels almost unreal. For the first time since arriving in Lagos, Aduni allows herself to imagine the possibility of something better. And in chapter 33, the lessons begin. Every time Miss Tia visits, Aduni sits with her and practices her reading and her writing skills. They go through sentences slowly, correcting grammar and learning new words. Sometimes Aduni struggles, but Miss Tia is always there to encourage her to keep trying. Each lesson brings her one small step closer to finishing the essay that could change her life completely. In chapters 33 and 34, we see that with the help of Miss Tia's teachings, Aduni's speaking ability is getting better and better by the day. Throughout the book, Aduni has been speaking in sentence structures that have little discrepancies and errors, yet her confidence and curiosity to learn are very apparent. She asks many questions, like why Miss Tia has braces and what the internet is like and how she met her husband on Facebook. Aduni talks about how she ran away from home and found herself in Lagos. She talks about her mom's passing and marrying Morufu, and she cries while saying all of this, yet still keeps some trauma locked away, not wanting to scare Miss Tia off. Miss Tia tells her about herself, how she's close with her dad but not her mom, how she wants children but her husband isn't too interested in the possibility. She didn't want any at first, fearing that she would end up like her mother, until her conversation with Aduni. They talk about everything and nothing, becoming closer as the days go by. 6 days after her lessons with Miss Tia started, Aduni is in the boys' quarter reading the paper that Tia gave her with sentences when she hears a noise. At first, she thinks it might be a rat scurrying around in the wardrobe, but the noise turns out to be coming from in front of her door. She opens it and sees Big Daddy standing in just his trousers and a white undervest. He's obviously intoxicated and tries cornering Aduni, telling her that he has a proposal for her. He wants to help her financially as long as they understand each other. She's trying to be respectful while also hoping he leaves, but he's relentless, even jamming his foot in the door. That is until Kofi appears right in the corridor, shirtless with a white wrapper, asking Big Daddy if he needs anything. Aduni has never been happier to see an almost naked man in her life. Big Daddy scurries away, giving an excuse about hearing a noise before turning into the house and slamming the door shut. Kofi turns to her to tell her she's lucky he wasn't asleep, and she thanks him gratefully. He tells her to be careful, as Big Madam will be returning next week. Chapter 35's fact is that child marriage was made illegal in Nigeria in 2003, yet an estimated 17% of girls, particularly in the north, are married before the ages of 15. We see that after that event, Aduni isn't really able to sleep well in her room at night. She's too nervous, fearing that Big Daddy might return again, so she decides to tell Miss Tia about it 3 days later at their lessons. She advises Aduni to try and get a lock for her door, and they also plot about how they're going to keep seeing each other once Big Madam returns from her trip. She tells Aduni that she must be cautious around Big Madam's husband and to inform her if he ever comes back to her room. They continue their lessons for the day, presents continuous continuous tense, but Misia feels a bit lightheaded and staggers to sit on the floor near Aduni. Misia tells Aduni she's been feeling like this for the past few days and she's hoping that it's pregnancy symptoms so that at least her mother-in-law can get off her case about grandchildren. She tells Aduni her mother-in-law doesn't know about her and her husband's decision to not have kids, but Aduni tells her to just give it time, and if the mother-in-law cannot wait, she should face her son and fight him instead. Tia laughs as she gets up from the ground, and before you know it, they're ready to continue their lesson. In chapter 36, Big Madam is back from her trip and is surprisingly in a very good mood, inspecting the whole house and giving Aduni 2 head pats once she sees that everywhere is spick and span. She chats about how her son is working in IT and her daughter is engaged to the son of a powerful senator. And yes, chapter 36 fact is that Nigerian senators are some of the highest paid lawmakers in the world. A senator earns around 40 million naira or $1.7 million in salary and allowances per annum. All the while, Aduni logs her heavy luggage behind her up the stairs. They reach the master bedroom, and after Big Madam dismisses her, that's when Aduni asks for the lock for her room door. Big Madam asks her why and if Chief did anything while she was away, but Aduni denies everything, saying that it's just because of the rats. Madam looks at her suspiciously for a long time before agreeing to bring a carpenter to fix the lock. Aduni thanks her, saying that she'll be back this evening for head scratching and foot massages. Later that evening, though, when she does go upstairs and she's about to knock on the door, she hears muffled voices sounding like they're in an argument. Big Madam is screaming at Big Daddy about how he's a disgrace and how could he even think about going near a 15-year-old girl's room. When Big Daddy replies, his words are slurred and he tells her to watch her mouth before he deals with her. And that's when Big Madam snaps and the dam really just breaks. She shouts that he's a useless man who needs her to put money in his pocket, the same money that he uses to gallivant around different universities, picking up young girls, giving them 200,000 naira allowances or trips to Zanzibar. And now he's resorted to chasing a common house girl for sex. She starts lamenting to him about why he won't love her after everything she sacrificed for him and his reputation, and how their children refuse to visit because of the way he treats her. She screams all this until Aduni hears a muffled noise like someone punching a pillow, then a slap, and then another, and another. Aduni's mind starts racing, that this is all her fault. If only she had kept quiet about the lock, none of these issues would be happening. She slowly backs away from the door and from all the screaming and cursing, running down the stairs through the kitchen until she reaches the boys' quarter and her room. That brings us to the end of chapter 36 of The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. I just like keeping you guys in suspense, honestly, because I could have done the rest of this book, but I said no, let me just, not be too much for you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown narration. We are going to do like the rules and the scoring and everything in the final parts of this book, so there's not going to be a rules for this part 1 or this part 2. So yeah, stay tuned for part 3, where we finally get to the climax of this book. How is Aduni going to be able to apply for this scholarship? Will she even be accepted into the scholarship? Will she be able to evade Big Daddy's advances? Will she ever be able to go back to her village? Who knows? You actually never know. Is Big Madam suddenly going to have a change of heart and decide to let her go? Probably not. But one can dream, one can hope. We don't know. We haven't read the rest of the book yet. Well, I have, but you guys haven't. So you'll see eventually. But yes, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like and leave a comment. Also subscribe to Ceevaluations. We are at 54 subscribers now, which is crazy. Like, oh my God. Thank you so much. I really appreciate every single one of you. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with me. And I cannot wait to see you in the next episode. Bye!